Hello, everybody. This is Ben Talks Talent Conversations, and today we have leadership coach Jen Lang. Jen, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. So I want to jump right in because I think we have a lot of really interesting things to talk about today. Um, I want to talk about you as a coach because I think it's really exciting. I think there is this hunger and thirst for mentorship out there. And as a young professional, I had a really hard time actually finding mentors. And I think looking back on it, I could have been proactive. I could have had a coach and I could have basically made that happen for myself. But I was unaware that coaching was even a thing. I wasn't sure that something like that was available. So I would love to start there. Um, so you said your experience with leaders is what propelled you to do what you do. So can you explain just to the audience what it is you do, how you go about doing it, and then we'll start there.
Yeah, I will do my best to explain. So I started a business focused on leadership development coaching for young professionals. And so a lot of it is one-on-one coaching where we build self-awareness and confidence and really focus on aligning intent to impact, because that's one of the biggest challenges and one of those blind spots that most of us face, especially early in our career.
Yeah.
The reason that I started this business is because back when I was 25 years old, I got thrown into managing people. I had no idea what I was doing, didn't really have any training or resources. Fast forward a few years, and I got access to a coach through a leadership program where I worked at the time. And it was just game changing for me. It gave me self awareness. It helped me understand that sometimes my impact was not aligned to what my intention was. And I just started doing it informally at work and taking what I had learned and trying to apply it to my own team. It kind of spun from there. And I think one of the other things too, beyond just lack of access for young professionals, is that we've all run into a bad boss or two. And sometimes you just wonder, wow, if that person had had access to this in their more formative years when they were forming, those leadership behaviors and their style, would they have been a better people leader? And so I'm really driven to try to make that change and that impact.
Yeah, something that you said there in your answer is so familiar to me, and it's that I became a leader without any training and without any experience. And I just feel like that's so often the case. Like, being in talent acquisition and being in the recruitment, world for as long as I've been in it, and working with hiring managers, I can't tell you how many times I've talked to someone who was placed in a leadership role with like zero preparation for it. It was just like, oh, you've done really well at your job. You're now a people leader. I feel like that's very common.
I think it's super common and it's a totally different skill set too, right?
Yeah.
You could be a great performer when it comes to work and delivering goals, but
Yeah.
you might fall short as a leader just because it's a totally different skill set that, like you said, a lot of companies just don't have quite the right resources or platforms set up to support.
Yeah. I remember hearing about this theory one time that people tend to get promoted right up into the point where they're unqualified for the job. Like they do well, they do well, they do well, but their final promotion in that series of promotions is to a place where they're maybe ill-equipped to be successful. And I bet that happens a lot at the first people leadership place because there's just isn't that preparation. Like you said, completely different skill set. Um, so it's avoidable, which
Yeah.
is interesting to me.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I think the stat I've seen is that 75% of new leaders fail. I think that's often when you bring someone new into the organization, not necessarily a promotion from within. But a lot
Yeah.
of that is because we're just not equipping them with the right
Yeah.
support, not building the right skill sets, and not always gauging feedback from the team and team
Yeah.
assimilation. I think that's a huge component that's missing. And that's something I focus on too, is making sure we enroll the team to do those feedback checks along the way.
That is a jarring statistic. 75% of new managers fail. When you think about, especially the downstream impact of what failure means,
Mhm.
failure as a leader means you're hurting a business. It means, depending on how you fail, maybe you're adversely impacting a team that relies upon you for direction and growth. So the ripple effect of 75% of new managers failing is actually quite massive if you sit and think about it for a minute. I
Yeah.
didn't know it was that high. I don't know if that's surprising, but if you think about it, it's like, sheesh, that's not good.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, and to your point, it's failure in a lot of different ways, right? It's failure
Yeah,
in turnover within the team, it's lack of engagement, which of course results in poorer business performance. There's just
yeah,
that massive ripple effect from one, not great leader who doesn't have those skills. And so again, it's just the catalyst for me of how many people can we reach and support
yeah.
along the way so that we prevent that from happening.
Yeah, when you just think about when you actually think about that and you unpack it, you just think like how worthwhile is it for organizations to actually equip their leaders? And like shockingly, why is this still a problem? Right? Like given like the math and how that maths out, and given like how easy it would be to probably just like equip people to lower that number over time, it is kind of shocking that
Yeah.
it remains a persistent issue. So
Yeah, I think it often falls to, the bottom of the priority list. And
yeah.
also where it falls on is the leader that's already managing the team
Mhm.
oftentimes will bear the burden of that leadership development and personal growth support for the team. Um, and so I think organizations are often aware of how
Yeah.
much of a difference it could make, but it's really hard to go dedicate the time and the energy to do that.
Yeah. Okay, we've probably spent enough time talking about how horrifying that is. I just couldn't move off of it because I kept thinking about it. I want to talk about young leaders you have helped. So talk to me just a little bit about some of the people you've been able to work with, how that works, and how they are able to specifically like elevate their careers and what that looks like. I think that would be very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's funny, there's a couple of ways that people tend to come to me. In one way, which I would say is 60 to 70% of the time, it's someone who knows or is hungry for some type of personal development, or they've got, hey, I know that I couldn't get myself ready for this new big role, this promotion. I'm not happy or feeling stuck in my career. Like I'm already aware that there's something going on and I need some help. And then the other people that come to me are a little bit less clear on what they want from coaching. And so we start in two different places depending on how clear somebody is on their goals. The thing
Yeah.
too that I want to call out that a lot of people don't know is that most organizations will invest in coaching, in leadership development, and also in the team building. And people are often surprised when they come to me directly if it's not an organization that I'm working with, that that's a thing. So we'll sometimes write the business case together to do that. Um, but in general, it's someone that is facing some type of career challenge. Because I work with young professionals, it's often how on earth do I align my personal and my professional life and goals? Because it's people who are getting into serious relationships or getting married, thinking about starting a family, maybe even pivoting careers entirely. And so, what we really do is focus on getting clear on the goal from coaching, what it is that you want. What's your ideal state when you come out of this in about 6 months? And then we start to do the work too to uncover what are your core values? What is your purpose in life? How do you actually start to align your choices and your decisions with those values? And so a lot of the work is just building that self awareness of noticing when something's off, noticing when something feels great, gaining confidence to make those choices and those decisions too, especially within discomfort. And a lot of it is just honestly like increasing vulnerability and a willingness to be open and to share what's going on, either within our own sessions or with their team, because that's how you start to really drive that ripple effect. And the team, the other people will see the benefits of that. It builds trust, it builds engagement, it reduces turnover, all of these things that we've talked about.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's so interesting. Like listening, there's a lot of things I could probably focus in on about what you say and like just dig in further and ask more. But one of the things I thought was really interesting is talking about how you can write a business case with a person to get their organization to, you know, either cover or help with the cost of getting coaching. And
Yeah.
I just think that's so interesting to me. Like, because I think when if you're someone out there who is a young professional who feels like they are on the precipice of growing their career into a new and exciting, but potentially challenging arena, right? Like you're ready to take it to that next level, and you're like, well, how can I do that practically? What are the things I could do to make sure that I'm ready for that step? And coaching to me is one of the things that should be in your head there when it comes to like, okay, what can I do to make sure I'm ready? Like coaching makes sense. I personally have coaching, um, you know, um, not for careers actually, for like chess, but like I have a coach and I understand the benefit there, right? So to me, it makes sense. But a lot of people probably think that, but they go, okay, well, how do I pay for that? What is the cost of it? How do I practically make that work for me? And the idea that you could actually get that covered by your organization is probably a very novel idea to a lot of people who probably, if they knew about that, would try to access it
Yeah.
so that they could receive the benefit of coaching. And that's so interesting because I hadn't even thought about that. Like that's not a thing that came into my mind either. So
Yeah, that
I
it
imagine it
I
hasn't come into other people's minds as well, right?
yeah, that's one of the biggest things. Again, if it's an individual coming to me and not an organization that I'm working with, they often
Yeah,
don't know that they could even ask for this.
yeah,
So that's a shift in mindset too, of like, be willing to ask for it, ask for what you need. And then
yeah,
I'm here to help you write that business case because I wrote it for myself when I wanted
yeah,
coaching at my old job, and it
yeah.
worked out well. And so I do that with quite a few of my clients if it's an individual coming to me. And I would say 90+% of my clients are supported by their organization. They're not paying out of pocket.
Oh, that's a good statistic. We started off
Yes.
the interview with a not so good statistic. That's a more positive one. Um, okay, I want to talk about common challenges you're able to help leaders, um, like I don't know, address and get by. Right. I want to talk about what are their common roadblocks because I imagine right now, like there are people who are listening to this and watching this video, and they're wondering, like, I wonder if the things I'm struggling with are the things that Jen hypothetically could help me address and get by. So, what are some of those common roadblocks so that people can see themselves perhaps benefiting from this?
Yeah. So, like I said, one of the biggest is how do I align personal professional life of
Yeah.
I want to go move into senior executive like leadership roles at some point. I also want to start having kids and I want to have time for my family. Like, how do I start to navigate that? And that's when we go
Mhm.
back to, well, what do you care about most, right? What are your core values? What are you motivated by? And let's start using that as your filter for evaluating opportunities versus saying, I need to be in this specific role. It's this is the type of work that energizes me. This is the type of work that helps me deliver on my purpose and what I care about most. Um, that's one of the most common ones. I think the other one is I'm feeling stuck. I've been passed over for a promotion a couple of times now, or I was surprised by feedback I got at my last performance review. Something's going on, but I don't quite know what it is. And that's where we often start with an assessment, sometimes a 360, sometimes self assessment, just to understand more about how this person is showing up at work. And again, uncover those blind spots where you might have a certain intention, but the impact on other people and your reputation might not align with your identity or your intention. And so it's just doing a ton of that awareness type of work and then mapping out, okay, well, what's the impact you want to have? Let's figure out how you start making that impact and making the choices that ensure that you show up the way that you want to show up.
Yeah. It's interesting because you just laid out like two roadblocks, right? Like I've been passed up for promotion, or I had a review and I got feedback that
Yeah.
was worse than I was expecting. I was not expecting that. I'm unhappy about it. And I'm sure you have more examples, but just those two, like how many people can relate to those, right? Like I'm just thinking about in my past. In my past, I can certainly relate to some of those. And I bet there are just so many people out there who can hear like and see themselves in that scenario and be like, that has been me. So I think it's nice to know that there are solutions to that. There are ways to address it. You can be strategic around those things and look inward, evaluate the situation, and actually have a plan to move forward. So I think a lot of people can benefit from that. And if you're hearing this and you're like, yeah, that is me, and I could benefit from it, well, 9 out of 10 of you might be able to get your organization to pay for it, which is really interesting to me. So I just find that to be really really interesting because yes, those are common things I imagine people deal with all the time, and being able to actually use that moment of disappointment to craft a strategy to move forward is quite
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah. I think the other really cool benefit of coaching is I will challenge or call out people,
Yeah,
who might be making a generalized statement or might be telling themselves a story based on their own
yeah,
interpretation or feelings versus the facts. We call that reframing perspective. But are we allowed to swear on this?
yeah,
I'll say BS.
yeah, okay,
But
yeah,
I that's part of my style of like, I'll call you on your BS and we align on that up front of like, are you okay being called out? But I
yeah,
do think those tend to be the moments of like true introspection or insight, like the ahas for clients, because they'll say, oh, I haven't looked at it that way. And then over the next few days, it just kind of sinks in and they'll have the aha moment, in the shower, walking the dog, whatever, and go, oh,
yeah,
this is actually what I want to go do about it instead.
yeah. Listening to you just now, I don't think coaching would work unless you're willing to be called out on your BS. Like, for example, if you just have a coach that agrees with you all the time and goes, oh, no, you did the right thing, like, how are you supposed to grow from that? I
Yeah.
think it's actually critical to
Yeah.
be, and it should be exactly what you want, to like be like, no, actually that's inaccurate. Here's what needs to be changed. Because if you have someone who is unwilling to call you on your BS, on your mistakes, or point out where you aren't doing what you could be doing, you're never going to grow, because those are the things that you need to actually like eradicate. Those behaviors, those thoughts, those perceptions need to change in order for you to grow. Um, so I just can't imagine coaching without someone being willing to call you on that.
Yeah, you're totally right. And that's a big part of as we're just doing kind of chemistry introductions, making sure it's someone that really wants to dig in and is going to
Yeah,
be open to the process. And that's something that sometimes happens if an organization comes to me and says, hey, we've got some candidates for coaching.
yeah,
If the person is not all in too, then I'll kind of flag it and say, hey, like I think this is probably not the right fit right now, because it wouldn't be
yeah.
beneficial for anybody.
Yeah. Well, real quick, if people are looking to find you because they feel like they are that person, they could benefit from coaching, what would be the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, you can email me directly, Jenn, at thecorecoaching.com, or you can go to the website at thecorecoaching.com. I'm also on Instagram at thecorecoaching and same on LinkedIn. Pretty easy at thecorecoaching.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent. And then I've got one last question before we wrap up here. Classic closing question for the podcast. What are you passionate about outside of work?
Side. Oh, a lot of things. I think my number one is I call it cooking, but it's really about hosting. I
Okay.
love to cook for other people and I love to make it a whole experience. I love to have a dinner party. I'll align it with a theme. I love a tablescape. But most importantly, I want everyone who's coming to feel very welcome and comfortable. And I want to make sure that everybody has enough to eat, based on dietary restrictions and all of that. And um, there's always room at our table is what I'll say. I love the Highwomen song Crowded Table. That
Yeah.
resonates a lot with me of I always want a crowded table just full of friends and family and good food and good wine.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, who doesn't love that? It's funny. I just watched the Martha Stewart documentary, and thought it was awesome, by the
Yeah.
way. And like, but you talking about the hosting, the experience, and all that, just kind of like reminded me of that. I was like the classic husband where I wasn't watching it, but my wife put it on, and then like slowly became more and more interested. Like I'm just playing chess, and I'm like, next thing you know, I'm like, oh, I can't believe he did that. Why would he do that to Martha? But anyways, it
Yeah.
just reminds me.
Martha is one of my idols. Martha and Dolly Parton have been my top two since I was a little kid. So I
Yeah,
love that documentary too.
I thought it was great, and I never disliked her, but I definitely like her a lot more
Yeah.
after watching that. It was
When you
a
see what
great
she went
thing.
through. Yeah.
Yeah, well, very cool. Good inspo. If your passion is like creating an awesome, dining and experience for family and
Yeah.
friends. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, tell you what, Jen, I thank you so much. I appreciate you coming on today. People, if you are listening and you are looking for coaching, you know where to go. But thank you again. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ben. It's been fun.
Yeah.